Hello, it's another Daily Wisdom from Proverbs. Today we're in Proverbs chapter 29, and verse 1 says this: He who is often reproved, that's when you're corrected, that's when you're rebuked, that's when somebody tries to bring you back on the right path. Often reproved, yet stiffens his neck. You don't listen to that reproof. It says that person will suddenly be broken beyond healing. Even patience has its limits. There comes a point where the reproofs and the correction turn into discipline. Verse 2, when the righteous increase, the people rejoice. But when the wicked rule, the people groan. Verse 3 says that he who loves wisdom makes his father glad, but a companion of prostitutes squanders his wealth. Verse 4 says, by justice a king builds up the land, but he who exacts gifts, or maybe it means he who heavily taxes people, tears it down. Verse 5, a man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. 6, an evil man is ensnared in his transgression. Isn't that true? Don't we get caught up in our sin? And it just captures us and tangles us up. An evil man is ensnared in his transgression, but a righteous man sings and rejoices. Verse 7, a righteous man knows the rights of the poor. A wicked man does not understand such knowledge. 8 says, scoffers set a city aflame, but the wise turn away wrath. Verse 9, here's some wisdom for how to handle arguments. If a wise man has an argument with a fool, the fool only rages and laughs, and there is no quiet. Arguing with a fool is foolish in itself. Verse 10, bloodthirsty men hate one who is blameless and seek the life of the upright. Verse 11, we'll pause on this one for just a moment. A fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. Now, this is similar to something we looked at a few days ago that says fools show their annoyance at once. They're quick to show their feelings. This takes it even a step further and says, when you're foolish, you give full vent to your spirit. In essence, what you're saying is, I've got something on my mind and you're going to hear it whether you want to hear it or not. And I'm just going to give full vent to everything that's inside of me, full vent to my entire spirit. Everything I'm thinking, everything I'm feeling, you're going to experience. And that's foolish. But it says a wise man quietly holds it back. Which are you today? Are you the fool who gives full vent to your spirit as often as you can? Or are you the wise person who quietly holds back, who knows when not to speak? Verse 12, if a ruler listens to falsehood, all of his officials will be wicked. 13, a poor man and the oppressor meet together. The Lord gives light to the eyes of both. Verse 14, if a king faithfully judges the poor, his throne will be established forever. Look carefully at the similarities between verses 15, 16, and 17. Verse 15 says, the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself who doesn't get correction, a child left to himself brings shame to his mother. And verse 16 says, when the wicked increase, transgression increases, but the righteous will look upon their downfall, the downfall of the wicked. 17 says, discipline your son, and he will give you rest. He will give delight to your heart. So what do those three verses all have in common as a similarity? They're all about lawlessness. They're all about societal downfall, right? When things in our society just seem to be going absolutely crazy, because they all tie in with the next verse, verse 18. Look at it with me. Where there is no prophetic vision, the people cast off restraint. When people only deal with the present, today, the now, live for today, it says people cast off restraint. Society becomes a mess. They only worry about themselves. They only worry about what's going on in their life right in that moment. And they have no prophetic vision. Where do we get prophetic vision from? It's from God's word. That's where it comes from. And when we have no prophetic vision, when we don't think about eternity and we don't think about the future, it says people cast off restraint. Society becomes a mess. And we've seen it over and over and over through all of human history, that in societies where God's word is not respected, God's word is not honored, God's word is not followed, people cast off restraint. Thankfully, there's a second part to this verse. Second part of verse 18, but blessed is he who keeps the law. Verse 19, good words here for employers and parents. By mere words, a servant is not disciplined, for though he understands, he will not respond. So what you need to do when you're trying to correct someone, when you're trying to train someone, is don't just use mere words. Don't just say, hey, do this, don't do that. Instead, when you're explaining to people why they should or should not do something, explain the consequences and help them understand a picture of what obedience and disobedience looks like. That's exactly what happens all throughout the book of Proverbs, the wisdom we see. Solomon and the other writers of Proverbs paint a picture for us in a multitude of ways. So that way it's not just mere words. We get to use our imagination. We get to really understand what wisdom looks like. Verse 20, do you see a man who is hasty in his words? There's more hope for a fool than for him. Verse 21 says, whoever pampers his servant from childhood, whoever coddles somebody who makes life as easy as possible for them, says will in the end find him his heir. You'll just wind up having to do everything for that person, for them, for the rest of their life. It's good to teach people to be self-sufficient. Verse 22, a man of wrath stirs up strife, and one given to anger causes much transgression. I would add here that this person causes much transgression not only for themselves, but it sometimes stirs up transgression in other people as well. Verse 23, one's pride will bring him low, but he who is lowly in spirit will obtain honor. Common theme we've heard many times in the book of Proverbs. Verse 24, the partner of a thief hates his own life. He hears a curse, but discloses nothing. Verse 25, the fear of man lays a snare. We often live in fear of man. We want to do everything we can to please other people. Sometimes it's called peer pressure, where we give in to things we know we shouldn't do because we don't want anybody to think bad of us. We don't want anybody to make fun of us. We have a fear of man. But it says that's a trap. It lays a snare for us. The fear of man lays a snare, but here's a great contrast. Whoever trusts in the Lord is safe. Verse 26, many seek the face of a ruler, but it's from the Lord that a man gets justice. In verse 27, an unjust man is an abomination to the righteous, but one whose way is straight is an abomination to the wicked. Well, that's Daily Wisdom from Proverbs, chapter 29. 2 days to go, and I pray you would join us again tomorrow.